I believe organic content is like the heart. You have to put yourself in a position for success, and organic content does that.
Hello, everybody. Happy November. It is a pleasure to be with you here. The DNA team and I are excited to present to you why 90% of campaigns fail and how content can save yours. This is an important topic. When you look at the success rates of startups, they're not great. When you look around the data for capital raises, in the VC world, less than 5% of deals are funded. In equity crowdfunding, we would say the top 10% of campaigns move. They've raised over 650K. They raise over 130K a month on average based on data that we see on King's Crowd. And really the bottom half of campaigns are barely moving at all, under 10K a month raised. They can be looked at as failures. And in many cases, they're undermarketed. The content, the momentum that is being showcased is subpar. We want to go over the tactics with you here today that we use to deliver campaign leading results. We had the top campaign in October, had one of the top reg Ds that ended in September, August, July. These aren't flukes. We're not getting lucky. We're just following marketing best practices. So I'm joined here with our content marketers, Ashley and Richard, who, in conjunction with our content marketing director, Khalil, in conjunction with our writers, designers, editor, put together, by definition, industry-leading content. So, Ashley, Richard, let's start with introductions. Talk a little bit about your background and why you enjoy working on these campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited to be on this webinar today with everybody. I've been with DNA for about 2 years now. I've done marketing in general for about 6 years, but I've had some great opportunities to work on some super exciting campaigns. I've worked on the Atom Beam campaign, which, if anybody's familiar with Atom Beam, has been really successful. Currently doing another round on Start Engine right now. And I've got to work with a lot of other clients as well. And it's super great just to see the momentum and the success and everything that they have from start to finish and be able to work on those campaigns.
Yeah, that was good, Ashley. Ashley and I have been at DNA for the same time, a little over, or going to 2 years now. So basically, what we do every day is come up with creative ways to help these campaigns in every aspect. We liaise with the founders, generate those ideas. Some founders might not want to go our direction, thinking that it's too, outlandish. But sometimes, creative. I look on marketing as a lifeblood of everything, any type of business that you're doing. And for myself, I've been in the digital marketing industry for about 10 years now. But yeah, I'm just glad to bring my experience to the table and help these campaigns. I've worked on campaigns such as Avadain and EarthGrid and Boxable. So, it's been a pleasure just to see these companies grow and achieve a certain amount of success.
So you're hearing it here from the source. The content marketers are at the forefront of the investor acquisition world. I'm Jason Fishman, by the way, CEO, co-founder of DNA. We've worked on over 350 equity crowdfunding campaigns that have collectively produced 9 figures of capital across content, advertising, and outreach channels. Have put together a deck here, and that is what's in the background. This is not just a fun course that we put together on the ideals for a campaign versus the actual nuts and bolts of a structure that's designed to target thousands, in many cases hundreds of thousands, even millions on some campaigns of prospective investors, and take them down a marketing funnel, from awareness, consideration, intent, conversion, repeat conversion, and advocacy. That's what we're doing with the content marketing. I want to give a shout out to Brendan, our creative director, who designs these amazing decks each month. We go through a whole process internally to put these together. Whether you're watching live or on a recording, that is what is in the background. So, Ashley, you want to kick us off here and talk about some of the common pitfalls of failed campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest pitfalls, which you can see here, is just inadequate planning. So having no direction as to where you're going or what you're going to post, and just kind of sporadically throwing things at the wall and hoping that they stick. So obviously you're doing a campaign geared towards investors, and investors want to see what exactly you have as far as the business, as far as traction is concerned, momentum, new team members, all of that type of stuff. There's nothing too small that investors don't want to hear about. And the more that you're throwing at them, the more that they're going to be more inclined to invest and look more into your campaign at the very least. So inadequate planning is absolutely one of the biggest ones that we see. And then poor messaging too, just, spelling errors or just overall kind of a little bit jumbled and mixed messaging too. You see a lot of that, and it just kind of gives a little bit of confusion to the investor when they're looking at your guys' campaign.
And this meme here with Morpheus, what if I told you starting with the content strategy is best practice? If that seems self-explanatory, take a look at the 499 campaigns that are live and documented on King's Crowd right now. Look at the 200 plus that have produced $0 this month here in November. Look at their content channels. They're likely non-existent. When I speak to a prospective issuer, they want to tell me why they can't put budget into content marketing. It's not of interest to us whether they use us for content marketing or do it internally. And we have coaching, quarterbacking of the content to ensure that each touch point, each deliverable that would be considered best practice on the most effective campaigns is in place. They'll then explain, we're going to put those efforts in later. We want to see it working first, but really starting with it. I mean, this is why we see the campaigns fail. And in that column over here to the right of lack of engagement, poor messaging, inadequate planning, the marketing's often an afterthought, where, we get on the line with the client and their prospective client, they're going live next week. They went live 2 weeks ago, and maybe they're going to run some advertising, maybe do some outreach once we get some capital. And that's when we're going to actually follow the recommended path. So begin with this solid content marketing plan. And if we're talking about the power of content and equity crowdfunding, well, I should ask, Richard, in your perspective, why content marketing? What is the power of it on these initiatives? It's just companies trying to raise capital. Why do they need to produce content? They're not a media house.
Yeah, and that's a great question, Jason. So as I said earlier, I believe that, content is like a living, breathing organism, right? And I believe organic content is like the heart. It, pushes, blood to every single organ. So look at every organ as like a different part of your business. So organic content does a couple things. It builds credibility and trust. It builds engagement and awareness, educates your audience, builds a sense of community around your raise, more visibility, social proof. And, the list goes on. Even just relationship building with potential investors, you have to put yourself in a position for success, and organic content does that.
It's typically 7 touch points or more before an investor converts. And we want to be intentional about what those audiences see when they're searching around, performing their own due diligence, especially if they're retail investors. Where else are they going to turn? They're not speaking with you directly in most cases. Meanwhile, quick Google search, your social media channels are probably going to show up first. Maybe some Google News. If they get to those channels and they see a promotion about an upcoming webinar or an article you just put out or conference you're going to speak at, or they see an image with a quote from you or a video clip that was used to create this content, it says something. And if they get there and there's nothing, the last post was 2022, 2021, or just has nothing to do with the raise, there's no evidence that you're actually fundraising and that your request for their personal information, their banking information is actually valid. Ashley, what are some of the essentials here?
So as you said, it takes 7 to 17 touch points, if not more, to get people to convert. So I think some of the essentials and why it's crucial for content to be in a campaign and involved for its success is because of the fact that you never know what avenue somebody's going to find your information from to be able to go to your campaign page and then invest. So you don't want to rely solely on one specific platform. You don't want to rely on the portals and the portal updates only, hoping that people will see that when there's hundreds of campaigns obviously going on at the same time. So you want to be able to put that across the board, doing the social posts, doing the email marketing, of course, doing the portal updates, blogs, all of that type of stuff as well. But in addition to that getting seen across the board, it also just helps with SEO and optimization too, to try to get your brand to build awareness. So it's very important to make sure that your content is the same across the board, but also aligns just overall with your brand, your strategy, and kind of breaks things down based on what exactly your goals are with this campaign and this race. You know, breaking down things in simple terms of what's the problem and the solution, what's your guys' mission statement, you know, all of those things, some of the perks that people can see when they come into as an investor.
And Richard, when we're talking about content, what actual channels, what actual assets, development that we're going to be distributed, you know, what channels are we actually distributing across with the development?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, we utilize email marketing a lot. So it takes two different forms. It takes the email drip process, which is automated emails once you sign up to give your information to a specific company, then, you know, you automatically get emails. Portal updates, which is very essential. Those live on your race page. So any conversations that are happening, it's important to, you know, keep that people or even people on your watch list updated with relevant information. And, you know, 3 social media channels, it's important, like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. All those channels are very important because, as Ashley said, everything has to be consistent. And, you know, investors or potential investors have to be able to see that, you know, they can also trust you.
And when we're working on the strategy, highly recommend that you look at past webinars, articles. I wrote an article in Forbes, some workshops at various physical conferences around strategy. We've built a model called the 8-point plan. In there, we're generally doing over the course of a week. Week 1's industry overview and competitor marketing audit, looking at what other groups are putting out in terms of their own content, what channels they're using, which content's getting the most engagement, which third parties are talking about them. We'll go on to look at what they're running for ads on social, what they're running for ads on search, what writers are talking about them, publishers, social pages. But you want to get a sense of what your target audience is going to see. That's what we go over in week 2, target audience and marketing channels. Week 3 is creative. So the initial content calendar and initial ads, followed by the projection, followed by the outreach, prospective map and messaging sequence. And then the last week, projections and activation. But it all gets mapped out ahead of time. So your channels, you want to be everywhere your target audience is. You know, going back to this document, if you're looking at 3 to 10, 4 to 10 target audience personas, you want to look at what those individuals do online. So if we're putting a fictional name, Ryan and Samantha, and if Ryan wakes up in the morning, gets to work and checks his email, and then reads Benzinga, Forbes, Market Watch, if spends an hour on Instagram, and if you think that's a crazy amount of time, set an hour timer on some of your favorite social apps. You'll be surprised how much actually goes into these apps for most people on a daily basis. We want to know everywhere they go online. We want to know the type of content they're consuming, so we can have a presence on those touch points organically with content marketing and paid with advertising. And organic, it's searchable, you know, as we're talking about. can be found on these channels. If we drive advertising, we drive traffic to a landing page with an email sign up, hey, now we're able to continue to reach that audience on their email on a regular basis, on top of the ads they're probably being retargeted with daily. If we get them to follow social as part of an initiative, follow our Instagram, we can now reach them there as well too, not just when they're searching around, but on their own social feeds and on top of advertising. If we could get them to sign up for a longer piece of content, all of this helps get the audience closer and closer. And, we really try to be at the forefront of investor marketing and want to see a higher success rate industry-wide. We put out this content to support in that initiative. We've made checklists. You can request access to this document and we will send you the checklist. Could actually look online and probably find it from past webinars, but we'll make it easy. Just send us a message here. We'll get this over to you. And you can see what to do in pre-launch. Email 1, 2, 3, the prospective email drip. We have systems that we've used on 7-figure campaigns and consistently seen a lift in performance around that you can leverage directly into your model. We want to give you everything you can leverage towards your own success. And, check out our list to see how you can harness the power of long form, short form, and email content. Every campaign is different, but there are common themes that have proven to increase brand awareness, mission, top reasons to invest, value persistence, social proof. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can certainly build on top of this, improve it, polish it up, make it more authentic for your audience, for your vertical, for your own brand voice. But we're an open book and are happy to provide this to you on top of the ideas that it shows right here. Ashley, you're a winner. How do we craft a winning content strategy?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Definitely planning. So, one thing that we've touched on a little bit, but we haven't fully touched on is the idea of pre-launch. And I think crafting a winning content strategy starts from the pre-launch. A lot of clients that come to us, you might have a fantastic email list ready to go that you're willing to send all of these emails to when you go live, announcing that you're going live, all of that type of stuff. But a lot of the times we don't have those clients that come to us. So building that content list, kind of getting people excited about something that's coming, all of that type of stuff really builds momentum before the campaign even goes live. So I think crafting a winning content strategy starts with that pre-launch, or at the very least, just getting the idea if you're not going to push out pre-launch content, but starting to at least build some of your lists and kind of build the following on your social channels as well. And then from there, just building out an actual calendar of what you're going to post, staying consistent, making sure that you say, okay, I'm going to post 3 social posts a week. I'm going to send out 1 email a week at the minimum. I'm going to post 1 portal update a week at the minimum. You need to make sure that you're staying consistent and that it's not sporadic. Again, throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that it sticks. You want to make sure that people are kind of aligned with what your content strategy is throughout the campaign.
Exactly. And again, not as an afterthought, but mapped out. When you look at the top Reg A campaigns, they produce tens of millions of dollars. Some have even produced 50, 63, more. You can raise up to 75 million. That doesn't happen by accident. It's not a matter of, hey, we listed a page and everyone was excited. And we got, 7,500 investors at, $10,000 on average each. 75,000 investors at $1,000 each, maybe 37,500 investors at $2,000 each. That's not a fluke. That's a well-crafted strategy, and not just the advertising, but the actual content, where I've seen groups planning to put out 9 months of content of this is what we're going to announce week 1. Week 2, week 3, we'll be able to talk about this at the beginning of month 2, and all the way through the timeline of their initiative, exactly as Ashley's saying, almost like you're blueprinting out the funnel of their audience is going to come here to the offering page. They're going to search here. This is what's going to happen over there. I'm going to drive the traffic to a landing page, then take them to the offering page, then take them here. They're going to get these announcements all the way through. You have to create that excitement. You have to showcase the momentum. Otherwise, there's not going to be action.
I think we lost you for a minute there, Jason.
Well, I hope it wasn't frozen in an embarrassing pose. But if you want to hop into target audience, how do we go about crafting this? Because we have to know who we're pitching.
Yeah, sure. So it's mainly about understanding who we're sending these messages to, right? So let's say it's Reg A plus or Reg D. The messaging has to be different because it's more of a educated audience, right? Or an educated investor base. So having more, stats, numbers to support the copy and the graphics. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry
Put a
about
polite mute there.
that. Sorry about that. But just having, copy that, is attractive to that specific audience because, they're going to want to know the nitty-gritty of it to make that, educated decision whether to invest or not because it's at higher volumes rather than, the average investor.
And then here, I would say, sorry, Richard, I'm stealing it from you. Here, I would say that a lot of times people think that going over the top with the information that you're putting out there is what's needed, when in reality, simplicity is key across the board. So when it comes to the graphics, when it comes to just the most simple things, you don't need to expand so heavily or feel like you need to expand so heavily. Something as simple as the problem and the solution. If it's a simple problem and solution, that's all you really need to say. There's no need to try to throw too much at it. And just make sure that you keep it simple and people will kind of understand and grasp what you're doing, what the content is that you're putting out there.
Keep it simple. I find that's one of the toughest aspects of creative development. How do you break down bigger ideas into as few of words as possible? I can't recommend Ryan Foland and the 313 method enough. Ryan Foland's a TEDx speaker, 4-time, oversees the entrepreneur department at the University of California, Irvine. And his method is simple. It took a long time to get it to that point. I used it to create Test Optimize Scale, which is the name of a podcast, and breaks down, encapsulates what we do. You essentially map out an idea or what your company does, as an example, into 3 sentences. Easier said than done. Then you combine those 3 sentences into one. Then you break that one sentence down into 3 words. And those 3 words are more impactful. They can create more action. They're repeatable to a much greater degree than looking at paragraphs to describe the same thing. I constantly have to look at LinkedIn and the about section of a business to understand what a company does and really what they think their organization does, how they write about it. And sometimes I'll look at paragraphs. Other times it's one sentence that really says it all. Sometimes it's off. And I do this for internal documentation so I could say what a business does in that company's own words. But it always surprises me how it often can look more like the image on the right versus the image on the left. Few words as possible. Some of the top brands do it with just a logo and not even any wording behind it. You want to be thinking more in that direction. Richard, you're a content creator. It is a standout thing in today's world. What are some tips for creating high quality, engaging content?
Yeah, sure, Jason. So always craft a compelling headline and focus on the CTAs to drive that audience action, right? So, there's a couple of reasons why this is like extremely important. It's it's basically you telling the audience why they should invest in you, also building that trust. It's number one, grabbing that attention, basically letting the audience know what you're completely about or not completely about, but giving them some insight into what your company is doing, building some excitement around the offering, you know, invoking a specific emotion to that specific audience so they feel compelled to join the journey, driving traffic and engagement, and just testing different pieces of content. It's important for us to look on your strategy and the headlines and the messaging be in the same direction and everything, or for us to always be on the same page in terms or where that's concerned rather.
Definitely make a soundbite of that. I think that's the big gap, is a content marketing team that's effective towards their brand marketing being unsure on how to create investor marketing and have it land with the audiences we looked at, pages back. We want to break down those walls, pull back the curtain, demystify how this is created. Again, for me, it all starts with the strategy and looking at what's really landing in the space. But being able to have the right processes internally or with your agency, with your contractor, what have you, to create this content at the right levels, systematically, and on time. That consistency is key. What about when it's created? What are some tips towards distribution, Ashley?
I would definitely say plan in advance. So, a campaign and pushing that live and all of the things that go into a campaign is a lot of work. And so things such as pushing out simple social posts that might seem simple on the outside, but are actually very effective for your campaign, kind of get put on the back burner a little bit. So you want to make sure that, again, this just goes into the strategy phase of everything, that you are planning everything out in advance, making sure you have that content calendar ready to go. So using social media tools like Sprout Social, that allows you to schedule out all of your social media stuff, give the date, give the time, you're done, you're ready to go. You don't need to do anything else in regards to that. Same thing with emails. You can do that, schedule all of that stuff out, but making sure that you're on top of the actual distribution, because once you start falling behind, then suddenly you have a buildup of all of these different content pieces that need to go out. And some you might just throw out and not end up pushing out, but you never know what content piece you're going to push out that might convert an investor and have them come into your campaign.
And look for places where you can distribute across multiple channels. Look for customizations for each channel so that it is more native for each platform. It doesn't just feel like you're posting the exact same thing everywhere. As Ashley mentioned, there's a lot of tools these days to streamline these efforts. There are some automations that you can use. I would be careful around it for development. For distribution, you want to double check the work on it, but at the same time, using the right platforms can allow for more scale, and you could preload hundreds of posts. I don't know if I would say more is more. I definitely would if the quality is there and if you have a large enough audience to produce the right engagement. But I could definitely say more times than not, more helps. So we want to get into some case studies and best practices here. Before we do, just want to take a step back for a moment. If I had a friend that was looking at going down this route and saying, hey, we want to do an investor marketing campaign, we want to use digital tools to reach investors online, I would stop them in their tracks and say, don't do anything until you plan out the marketing strategy. You're going to work on your legal, you're going to work on your financial audit, so you could do one of these filings simultaneously. Fantastic. But even before creating the offering page, really map out the entire strategy. And then as you get to the offering page, as you start working towards what's going to be found off of your offering page, you can't put in enough effort. Investors always want to see more. They're always going to be doubting. If you get a small percentage of them to convert, that's going to go a long way. And the development and distribution of this content is where we've seen lifts in campaigns. Hey, a big government contract was secured. If we just said that in a portal update, it wouldn't get too far. If we start getting engagement on the social channels, we run a webinar around that, we get a press release out, we start talking about it in the emails, we run more advertising to the landing page that's going to be distributed across those email channels. It's that education that makes the brand feel more consumable, the information around the team that makes the issuer team feel more relatable. And what we're going to be looking at here in the case studies is what we've seen work on some of the top recent campaigns. Again, I've worked on over 350, can talk about it for different verticals, different types of raises, what have you. Before we get into the case studies, Ashley, if you were recommending this and talking about it on a personal level of someone you've known for a long time, what types of content would you want to ensure that they're creating? We've talked about development and distribution a little bit. What types do you really picture, as we're talking about this?
So two always come top to mind for me. I think number one is email marketing. I think it's underutilized, and there is such a power to having a strong email list of people that you're directly targeting. And it's pretty consistent that people are going to open their emails and kind of see things that spark their interest. And so I think email is really, really important, and it allows you to push out a lot of different things. If you're doing a webinar, you can push out that recap video of that recording on your email. You can do different links to different things, such as your website in general and your campaign page, all of that type of stuff. Whereas, other platforms that you're utilizing, you might not be able to. So there's a lot of different touch points that you can include to get somebody to go to your campaign page within the email itself. And then second, I would say would be social media platforms. I always recommend using them. A lot of clients sometimes are a little bit hesitant. Maybe their following isn't so big. They don't think that the engagement is coming that they want from those posts, but people are on social media, and they're constantly on it across the board, of whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok. I'm definitely privy of sitting on Instagram for way too long, more than I should. But you see a lot of things on those places that spark interest. I've 100% seen businesses that I would have never known about before because of social media, and I might not follow them, but I've absolutely purchased from them. So I think it's important to not completely focus on that like count or all of that stuff. Engagement's extremely important, but again, that's another touch point to utilize.
Email, absolutely. When looked at, it's a top form of digital communication. I'll hear things such as, we don't have a large enough email audience, or I don't want to email everybody in my network, when it's really a key tool when it comes to entrepreneurship, the VC world, the equity crowdfunding world. Richard, beyond email, what else do you want to emphasize?
Yeah, sure, Jason. So I would say PR is definitely a very important part. Just getting yourself on different circuits, whether it be Yahoo Finance, Benzinga, any of these reputable articles that, are investor based, is very important because, we like to say social proof is very important before you even start, right? People have to be talking about you, speaking about your company. And even if they're not, it's not too late to start. I'd also say webinars. Webinars is a underutilized tool. I know, many people might not feel comfortable with public speaking, but, definitely as a founder, you're the star of the show, hands down. You have to be able to put yourself in front of the potential investors as, hey, we're here and now, and they have to have that specific confidence in you. And you have to consistently tell them about your company, what you're doing, and, make your offering shine.
And it amazes me how few of the issuers that are live actually do webinars. and what it says when they are promoting an upcoming live event panel, and they have several lead investors with them. They have clients, they have industry leaders there to validate the deal. Those social posts stand out. To be able to see upcoming webinar, one of the top professionals in this vertical, one of the top in that vertical, and me, the founder of this company running a Reg CF, and you can invest with me, you could partner with me. I think that definitely is a contrast to, hey, make sure to invest on our Reg CF, and the same messaging going out again and again and again. A webinar you can market before, during, after. There's the announcement of those guests. There's the background. Hopefully they promote out to their audiences. There's a series of promotions leading up to that distribution. Then from there, live marketing. Let's broadcast it live across the channels. Video clips. Let's create an article afterwards. Let's take splinters and create those meme, social image quote pieces that we can put together. The email, again, before, during, after. And if you're doing this regularly, it feels like you're being featured regularly. Hey, as soon as we started doing our webinars and our podcast and our weekly email and all of this put together, I actually spoke at less conferences, COVID and other things that have had to, I've had a reflection on the event field marketing world. But even doing less conferences, people think I'm doing more than ever, just because of how we're talking about it. So it may feel like just a basic Zoom webinar call to you, but externally it feels like you're public speaking regularly. And I speak at multiple events a month. There was a point in 2018 I spoke at 8 conferences in a month, and I've actually spoken at over in 8 countries. But just talking about it more makes such a big difference, and the webinar is the perfect setup to do so. We have webinars on how to create webinars and materials and how to do it. I highly recommend it. We welcome a warm marketing call at any point and can speak about it further. We've talked about email. We've talked about webinars a little bit. I want to get back to the deck, but really just talk about some live examples, or examples from this year, I should say. So if we're looking at EarthGrid, if we're looking at Atom Beam, we could go through some of their accounts right here. But what was it that was effective on EarthGrid for you, Richard? You were mentioning EarthGrid. We'll get into Atom Beam with Ashley, but on EarthGrid, what was it about their content that allowed for an outstanding conversion rate in comparison to industry averages? A huge final month. I believe it was 1.5 million produced in their final month to surpass 3.3 million in raise. What was it about the content? What did we do during our organic marketing push that made this campaign effective?
So that's a great question, Jason. So we always say that, we're an extension of their team, right? So having information to give us business updates, business traction for that specific campaign was one of the most important factors, right? So with their technology, they always had different partnerships, like with the government of Iceland. We created content out of that, also putting in every piece of content, the market opportunity, the solution, how their technology can improve the world that we live in. So it's all about, just speaking to the key points that live on the raise page and just saying it in different ways, putting the messaging across in a way that's easily digestible by the potential investor, giving them in numbers, talking about, how this specific company can change the world and they can be a part of it, right? So I think that was like a key driving factor, as well as, mixing it with, urgency, getting people in before the campaign closed. That was very important, just doing webinars also. That's why I said, a founder is a star of the show. it's very important for them to put themselves in front of the potential investors. And I think that set that specific campaign apart from many others, just because of the willingness to try new things, the collaboration of ideas. And, we definitely always want to bring new ideas to the table while working with what lives on the race page, reiterating the information that's there, and, getting the information across to these potential investors in every single way we can through every channel.
Exactly. And I think their Test Optimized Scale podcast was a standout as well too. No, we had Troy on the podcast, but I think Troy was speaking weekly, their CEO at different conferences, different podcasts. If we look at EarthGrid, just on Google, we can go to their site, we could go to their LinkedIn and learn about the structuring of their company. We'll take a look at a few of these, but I wanted to point out EarthGrid aims to rewire the USA using super cheap tunnel boring. If we got into their Crunchbase profile, this is a new press release from October. Their YouTube channel, their pitch book, new plasma robot can dig tunnels 100 times faster. This was in July before their closing in August. EarthGrid signs MOU with Icelandic government, as Richard was mentioning. This was in their final month, possibly a major contributor to their closing rush of investors. Green.org, Richard was talking about PR. We're seeing it live here. And so on, and so on, and so on. So, as we're going down, we're able to just see constant traction. And it really goes a long way. If I, again, do the search and nothing shows up, or if I do it and I see, oh, wow, it's May and last month they surpassed $1 million, or, the press release in October that they've been oversubscribed. If I'm able to look at the analytics on a platform like CrowdLustro or, King's Crowd, and see the constant traction. $30 million seed in addition to the Reg CF was secured on inside.com. All of this is content marketing. None of this was an accident. These things don't just happen. Here's a webinar sign up that we can look at. And just for anyone who's not aware of the campaign, here's the 3.277 million, have their video introduction here. Here's Troy, unicorn founder. Definitely recommend you check out the Test Optimized Scale podcast to get full depth on Troy's history well before EarthGrid. He is a very, very effective captain leading the ship. So here's, the offering page that was able to do it, but this is really just the first piece. Being able to, host these webinars and have everything set up to be marketed before, during, after as part of it. Looking at, some of the content that went out on their Twitter and, ongoing posts after the actual live fundraise. This is how it's done, over roughly 3.3 million raised in the top category of Reg CF issuers, probably top 100 of all time. This is the content that was able to do it. So we talked about standout, high quality content. This is what is present. Ashley, anything you want to add for EarthGrid before moving over to Atom Beam?
No, I don't think so. I think you guys covered everything for EarthGrid.
So what about Atom Beam then? What made it work? We know there was a tremendous amount of advertising, selfie videos, but speaking to the content marketing, what was different than a campaign that produced several $100,000 or even $1 million and allowed them to produce $3 million on their campaign that closed in July, end of July, one of the top campaigns on Start Engine and industry-wide in July, as well as their campaign that's live right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love Atom Beam. I'm probably biased, obviously, but I love Atom Beam. As I said at the beginning of the webinar, I've worked with them since I started at DNA, so about 2 years now, and they still have their current campaign going. But one of the key things that I noticed across the board from the first campaign, then when they paused to the current campaign, is that Charles is the CEO of Adam Beam. He's very engaging with everybody. So he's constantly doing these webinars that we're talking about, getting people in, just talking about, not necessarily about, hey, invest in Adam Beam and, here's the top reasons to invest in all of that type of stuff. He's creating these webinars for people that are viewing that are very informative, and it gets people exciting. So what's going on within the industry? Oftentimes he'll bring on guest speakers. So he's got a lot of really big partnerships, one within MERSAT. He's got a couple other partnerships as well. The US Space Force, some really big ones. So he'll bring on people with those partnerships kind of to talk more about the partnership overall, the business that, they're partnering with, and then kind of how that correlates with Adam Beam. And I think that gives investors a big insight into the campaign and into Charles, and it keeps the momentum going, even when there's ebbs and flows. And then another important thing too that I think that he does is there is ebbs and flows in a campaign. There's ebbs and flows in businesses, in campaigns, and everything. So it's important to know that you're not going to always be on that upward trajectory, and to not stop the content marketing or any marketing aspect of what you're doing just when things kind of have a little bit of a lull. So you might see that right now where there's a little bit of a lull just because the holidays are coming or something along those lines, but that's not the time to quit your marketing efforts. And Charles is very big on the fact that we're going to continue, keep pushing forward, keep moving on. Even when we stopped the first campaign and that campaign came to a close, we continued doing marketing efforts just around, what was going on within Adam Beam and keeping that traction going, making sure that just because the campaign closed, that audience isn't now getting no information from Adam Beam, and it's just kind of like radio silent and black. So I think that's been a really key aspect with them.
I love how you pointed out the marketing in between rounds. More times than not, when we see a campaign run past $500,000, even a few $100,000, we'll see that issuer come back a few months later, a year later, what have you. Even if they say they're not going to run another capital raise or not going to run another Reg CF, you're able to set the valuation, you're able to build an audience of ambassadors to continue to promote what you're doing. There are so many good things to point out about these vehicles, particularly when they're effective. And if you leave your investor audience, both those who have participated and those that didn't get a chance to solidify their investment before the round closed for whatever reason, if you fall off the map, it's hard to go back to those folks. We'll even see complaints and have to do reputation management. Hey, we haven't heard anything from the brand in a year and 2 years, and it's tricky to hop back in at that stage. Meanwhile, if you keep the audience abreast, it's a great platform. It's a great opportunity to be able to showcase all of the great things that your business is doing, whether or not you're going to do a next round. So if I search Adam Beam, able to go to their website, dramatically reduced IoT and machine data in real time over any network, well mapped out site, has a breakdown of what they do and the actual numbers. I'm a numbers guy. This brings it to life for me. Impending data crisis threatens to overwhelm networks, talks about the problem, talks about the solution. This is their site. If I go to their campaign video, have a full breakdown here, could even get directly to their Start Engine campaign from their site, which you'd think is basic, but groups run into issues with it. Their campaign relaunched about 6 weeks ago at this point, and has surpassed 796. Hopefully, it'll pass 800K today. You can see how much has been previously crowdfunded. This is on their campaign that ended in June. Here is their campaign that is currently live. This is their campaign that we worked on that ended in September 2021. And you can see the growth that is occurring on any of these rounds. That last one, like I said, just a few weeks live. But you could see what happened in the final period there as well too on these initiatives with the closing messaging and announcements that went into it. I always like looking at the updates, so you can see everything that's occurring weekly, 2 to 3 times a week. You want to craft this out as part of your content calendar. This should be an anchor of your content marketing stack. But you can see everything that's going out and how all of this was replicated on social. You can see all my messages here. But a week ago, we're approaching our next milestone, 600,000 raised from 200 investors in this round. That was a week ago. Imagine their posts for next week. Have you ever heard about our stack of patents, start engine, webinar recap? This is what you want to present to investors as they're trying to find more on you and determine whether they want to attach their name, let alone their money to your company and purchase shares and be involved for the next 5-10 years. Make sure that you're putting your best foot out the door to do so. You can see how this then exists on Facebook. Not necessarily a huge Facebook audience, but at the same time, we don't need that. We just need to have the right funnel, the right infrastructure for when audiences search around, because that is when they're in decision mode, and that is when you want to see that conversion rate lift. So here's just a few examples, a few breakdowns of campaigns that have recently done well. Content's been great over the past month, whether they're live or not. Have many other examples to showcase that are live today, let alone have run this year. I've worked on over 120 campaigns this year and have findings, things we've learned that have worked, that have not. We are very open and willing to share this and can speak to your actual marketing initiatives, your actual tactics, whether we're talking about content marketing, advertising, or outreach. But this is what we see as a missing on the 90% of campaigns that simply will not hit their goals. Certainly the 50% that raise under $10,000 a month. And if you're not running content marketing for your live campaign, I can tell you it's a great opportunity to see a lift, both from your organic audiences as well as any prospective investor who's searching around. It gives you something to talk about on your offering page, your offsite. You can showcase third parties and momentum, everything that's occurring. Do not wait. If you're in planning, definitely map out your content strategy and what's going to go live where and when throughout the course of your campaign. And if you're scaling and saying, we're running ads, we're seeing decent performance, we don't have any of this stuff, I think that's very few of you. Definitely integrate it. We've worked on those campaigns too that have had little content marketing. We've added more content marketing and seen a big lift. So I believe there's an opportunity here for all listeners, all viewers. Ashley, what final thoughts do you want to leave the audience with today? Have some time left, so no reason to cap it out. What do you want to share with founders so that they're more successful? They're not in that 90% that do not work.
I would say content is king. You have to do content. I think, as you said, there's some few campaigns out there that you might be able to do ads and you're not really doing content, or very minimal, and they're having great success. But imagine that success that you could have if you did content in addition to that. You can reach a whole nother audience, and it's extremely important to do. And in addition to that, something we didn't really touch on, but something that I think is really important is when you are pushing out this content as well on your campaign page and people are responding to that and they have questions about whatever updates you might have put or whatever that case is, make sure that you have a kind of a open door policy to answer these questions. These people want to learn more about your business and how they can come in as an investor. It's important to make sure that you're responding to them, whether it's via email and they're reaching out that way, whether it's a question that's asked on the campaign page in the discussion section. Make sure that you are responding to those questions, because people do take note of the fact that, hey, I put a question up there and I didn't hear anything for a week. So when you're pushing out content, don't wipe your hands clean and say, you know, that's the end all be all, it's out, it's done. Make sure you're following up and being engaged with your community.
Absolutely. Echo that. I want to do one of those DJ things where it sounds like a laser afterwards. Awesome words of advice there. Richard.
Yeah, sure, Jason. So definitely, I would say, you know, having a solid content strategy is one of the most important things for the success of any marketing initiative, right? And especially with equity crowdfunding, because it's your chance to build your community, you know, from the pre-launch phase all the way to the end of the campaign, educating that audience throughout from start to finish, creating more engagement, creating social proof. It's your opportunity to put yourself at the forefront of these potential investors and utilizing every single channel, whether it be webinars, PR, email marketing, as we touched on. It's very important for you to utilize these tools because, as I said earlier, marketing or content marketing is the lifeblood of every business. It's the heart. So definitely encourage everyone to, you know, hey, step your content marketing game up, get in touch with us. So, you know, we're always available to answer any questions. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also very active. But yeah, definitely don't look over content marketing. It's here to work for you.
Absolutely. And I would definitely take Richard up on that invitation. Follow Richard on LinkedIn, reach out. Would do the same right after this webinar with Ashley. Connect with me. There's no reason to be bashful or reserved on this. We work on too many campaigns to keep the information to ourselves. We publish these monthly webinars. I have a weekly podcast. We get an article every other week. We send our own email marketing, all with different findings, on top of various other content initiatives that we have and more educational materials to come. So reach out, book some time with us. We'll give you ideas, if nothing else. There's founders that we've never had the chance to work with, but have shared notes for years and have given them ideas which have been instrumental to the success of their campaigns. So we will look to wrap the webinar here today. Please reach out, as mentioned, if you would like a copy of the deck here. And do not sell your content marketing short. This is the differentiator as we look at the most successful campaigns and others that are just dipping the toes in the water. The chances towards success are too low not to bring marketing resources to the table, at least for discussion, if not coaching, if not activation of one channel, if not full management of your campaign. So give your brand the best shot it can get towards success. And utilize resources such as us, other marketing agencies, consultants, the platforms. This is not just a promotion for DNA as much as a cry for content marketing to be integrated to your campaign. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We will see you next month for our final webinar of the year. Please feel free to reach out with any direct questions or requests around future webinar topics. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Richard. Enjoyed speaking alongside you today.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.